Hi everyone, this is Amy from the Helms Academy, and today we're doing the Writing Club recap on self-editing. And this was our writing club from May 26th, 2020. So whether you missed it in person or you just want to review, let's get started. So our opening question for today is, why is it important to edit your writing? And a few of the reasons we thought about were that writing becomes more focused, more clear, more easy to follow. Vocabulary is improved. Your grammar and your spelling errors are corrected so you avoid confusion. These are all reasons that we should edit our writing before submitting a final product. The first draft of any piece of writing is never fully the best. There's always some way that we could reword something, make a different vocabulary choice, or maybe we have an outright error such as grammar or punctuation. So it's always good to go back and make a few changes before giving your final draft. So when you're editing, what are the things that you should look for? Well, I broke it down today into 3 areas. One is your grammar, spelling, and mechanics. The second one is organization and clarity, and the third one is content. So for our first area, grammar, spelling, and mechanics, there's some questions I want you to consider as you're looking over your writing, and I've formed them in questions so that you can answer them clearly with a yes/no. So for example, do I have punctuation at the end of each sentence? Now, this won't solve all of your punctuation problems, but it will at least get you started at looking for key punctuation throughout. And if the answer is yes, that's great, and you can move on. If the answer is no, you can find the places where you want to add punctuation. Is the first letter of each sentence capitalized? Are all of the proper nouns capitalized? Now, a proper noun is a specific person, place, thing, or idea, such as the name of a city, the name of a person, the name of a building. Those are all capitalized. Does every sentence have a subject and verb? And when you read the sentences out loud, do they all make sense on their own? AKA, are all of these sentences complete thoughts? And lastly, did I double check the spelling of words I felt unsure about? So these are some questions to get you started. They won't cover absolutely everything, and they're not foolproof, but editing is meant to improve the writing, not necessarily make it perfect. So what else would you add to this list? While there is no perfect piece of writing, what are the things that help you improve and make your writing better each time? So on this slide, you'll see an example paragraph, and it has a number of errors in it. Now, when you look at this quickly, you may not see a whole lot of errors just by glancing. But when you look more closely, there are spelling errors, punctuation errors, etc. Things that you will need to make changes to. So I invite you to pause the screen here so that you can look at this slide and get an idea for what things should be different. You can even rewrite it on your own. And then, as we go to the next slide a little bit later in the video, you'll be able to see what corrections were made to make this paragraph a little bit better than it was before, just by editing the grammar, punctuation, and capitalization. Okay, here are the corrections. How many did you get right? You can pause here and take a look at the answers so you can check your own work. Okay, so our next section is organization and clarity, and these are some questions that will help you figure out if your writing is really as clearly organized as it may have seemed in your head, and they'll help bring you out a little bit and take on a different perspective so that you'll get a better idea of how you can improve. So I want you to ask yourself, if a stranger read this, would the order of information and events make sense to them or not? If not, go back and rearrange some things so that you have all of the order of events or order of information that will help the reader follow along easily. Is there any part of this that would make more sense somewhere else in the writing? So think of your writing as fluid, as many different building blocks. You might need to take something out of one paragraph and put it in another because it belongs better there, and that's okay. Are the descriptions of people, places, and events strong? Meaning they're clear, they're not vague, enough for someone else to see what I see in my mind? When we're writing, oftentimes we have a clear picture in our own minds of what we want this to mean and say, but it's not always clear in our words. So I want you to challenge yourself to think about how could you add things or take things out to make your writing better and more clear. So think about it. What else would you add to this list for yourself? What would help you be more organized and clear? Put that on your own version of this list so that you can remember to edit for those things for yourself. Okay, so for this practice, we took a look at this very short paragraph. It says, mix together the flour, sugar, and baking powder. Add the eggs, vanilla, butter, and chocolate chips to a bowl. Bake and enjoy. Now, here we can probably deduce that this person is making chocolate chip cookies. But if we were not familiar with chocolate chip cookies, we might be very confused. One, it never says that we're making chocolate chip cookies here. Two, it never actually gives clear instructions on what to do with the mixture you've created. So you have flour, sugar, and baking powder mixed together. It says the eggs, vanilla, butter, and chocolate chips are in a bowl, but it doesn't say they're in the same bowl with the other ingredients. And it doesn't ever say to spoon them out like cookies onto a sheet. It doesn't tell you what temperature or how long to bake them. So you can imagine what kind of confusion would come out of this situation. So to be clear in our writing, we need to take an outsider perspective and think, would this make sense whether it's a series of events or it's an explanation of a topic? Does it make sense to an outsider reading it? Our final section here is about content and accuracy. So take a look at these questions with me. Did I include all of the content I wanted to include to tell my story or inform my reader or make my argument? So whatever you're doing, whatever the purpose of your writing, make sure that you include all the key content that you wanted to be there. Oftentimes, I find it helpful to write an outline ahead of time, so that way I remember to include those ideas in my writing as I go. Sometimes we all face writer's block, right? Where you can't come up with the next idea while you're writing. So if you can come up with some shorthand ideas, just sketch down on some paper first, then it'll be easier to include them later. But just in case, you should always go back when you're editing and check for the content. Make sure you included all those details and ideas that you wanted to be in there. So the next one, does the language I use make sense for my audience? Think about who you're talking to, and you want to match the tone. Is it more formal or less formal? Is it something that you need to include a certain kind of vocabulary in or not? You need to think about how you should address your audience. What do they know already or not know? And then how do you move forward with your writing from that perspective? So should I take out any insider language that won't make sense to some of my readers? So if you have insider language, which could include things like words that you use for your work or everyday life, but that not a lot of other people use, or it could be abbreviations for different companies or ideas. If you're writing about something medical, it could be an abbreviation for some kind of diagnosis. All of that could be considered insider language, and not everyone will understand it. So it's best to take that out and clarify it with an explanation of what it means. So, does my writing answer the question or respond to the prompt? You can have the most beautiful essay in the world, but if it doesn't respond to the prompt, then it probably won't get the score that you're looking for. You have to be able to address the actual prompt that's in front of you, whatever they are asking, whether it's a question or they're asking you to create an argument around a certain topic. You need to respond directly to what has been asked. And then, where can I improve my vocabulary choices? So this is not if you can improve them, this is where. Find words that you want to change up. And you can check out our last writing club to learn more about how you can change up your vocabulary to make your writing stronger. And stronger vocabulary means stronger sentences, which means stronger paragraphs, which means stronger essays. Think about what else you would add to this list. What else helps you keep a clear mark on your content and accuracy for your writing? So your task today is to make your own checklist. So I want you to think about what questions that you want to remember when you're checking your own work. And you can feel free to use as many of the questions that are on this presentation as you would like. But I'd encourage you to think of some specific things for yourself as well, especially if you know you have a particular issue with misspelling a word or forgetting a capitalization or a certain piece of punctuation that gives you trouble. Put that on the checklist so that you'll pay more attention to that in the future, and you'll be able to edit maybe some of those errors or make the changes that you want to make later to improve your overall writing. Now, I'd encourage you to also put this in some sort of notebook or computer document or a note on your phone so that way you can continue editing it and adding new things to it as you learn more in this process. So I'd encourage you to put this together, and if you are a Helms Academy student, send it over to your Helms Academy coordinator so they can give you some feedback. This is a great way to be thinking about your writing really critically and to be improving constantly. Thank you for joining me today for the Writing Club recap. I hope that you'll check out the Helms Academy by subscribing to our YouTube channel, checking us out on Facebook, on Instagram, and taking a look at helmsacademy.org.